Many times. He has been called, Bolsonaro, the Donald Trump of Brazil, and here they both come.
All right. The President of the United States and President Bolsonaro of Brazil both walking up. You'll see them come down the stairs here now. This is such a traditional sight that we see with bilateral type joint news conferences, and they'll begin to take the questions. John Roberts giving us the playbook there, two apiece. Let's watch together.
Today I'm very thrilled to welcome President Bolsonaro of Brazil for his first visit to the White House. President Bolsonaro, I want to congratulate you again on your tremendous election victory. Last October, it was an incredible feat and really a truly incredible challenge, and the end result was something the whole world was talking about. I also know that we're going to have a fantastic working relationship. We have many views that are similar, and we certainly feel very, very true to each other on trade. I think Brazil's relationship with the United States, because of our friendship, is probably better than it's ever been by far. I also want to congratulate you on your recovery from a truly horrible ordeal. It was an incredible recovery, and the people of your country know it. Great bravery. You've shown tremendous bravery. For 2 centuries, the American and Brazilian people have been united by shared values, including an enduring love of faith and family and country. The United States was the first nation to recognize Brazil's independence in 1822. And in the Second World War, Brazil was the only South American country to contribute troops to the Allied war effort. Today, the United States and Brazil are the 2 largest democracies and economies in the Western Hemisphere. We're in close agreement on the incredible opportunities and continuing challenges facing our region, and we have a truly historic chance to forge even stronger ties between our 2 great nations. This afternoon, the President and I discussed many of our mutual priorities, including Venezuela. Brazil has been an extraordinary leader in supporting the Venezuelan people's efforts to reclaim their liberty and their democracy. Brazil has helped so much. Along with the United States, Brazil was one of the first nations to recognize Venezuela's legitimate interim president, Juan Guaido. I also want to express our profound gratitude to President Bolsonaro and all the Brazilian people for their efforts to provide humanitarian aid. We also thank you for allowing the United States to station extensive assistance and massive aid on the Brazilian border. The Brazilian people have been incredible. Together we could and have been really very happy to feed thousands and thousands of starving Venezuelans. The Venezuelan people have appreciated it, and if the Maduro forces would step aside, it could be a truly great and successful humanitarian project. We call on members of the Venezuelan military to end their support for Maduro, who is really nothing more than a Cuban puppet, and finally set their people free. The United States and Brazil are also united in support of the long-suffering people of Cuba and Nicaragua. The twilight hour of socialism has arrived in our hemisphere, and hopefully, by the way, it's also arrived, that twilight hour, in our great country, which is doing better than it's ever done economically. The last thing we want in the United States is socialism. So, President Bolsonaro, I will tell you that we'll be consulting and talking a lot. We'll be working on all of our both problems and assets, and we're making tremendous strides. We had a great meeting today. As I told President Bolsonaro, I also intend to designate Brazil as a major non-NATO ally, or even possibly, if you start thinking about it, maybe a NATO ally. Have to talk to a lot of people, but maybe a NATO ally, which will greatly advance security and cooperation between our countries. Our nations are already working together to protect our people from terrorism, transnational crime, and drugs and weapon trafficking. Also human trafficking, which has really become something that's come to the forefront of crime. Horrible, horrible situation. We look forward to an even deeper partnership and working together. In our meetings, we also discussed the strong economic ties between our nations grounded in the principles of fairness and reciprocity, my favorite word, reciprocity. President Bolsonaro and I are both committed to reducing trade barriers, facilitating investment and supporting innovation across a range of industries, particularly energy, infrastructure, agriculture, and technology. The President's vision for freeing the private sector and opening the economy is the right way for Brazil to achieve strong economic growth, and our great companies are ready to go when that table is flat and free. To improve our business relationships, we have revived the U.S.-Brazil CEO Forum, and we have started a new U.S.-Brazil Energy Forum. We welcome Brazil's aspirations to join Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, a laudable goal and one that will make Brazil's status as a developing and developed country. We also hope that all of us will be able to work together, all nations. I'm also pleased to announce that after 20 years of talks, we are finalizing a technology safeguards agreement to allow U.S. companies to conduct space launches from Brazil. It's actually an incredible location when you study it and when you see it. We won't go into it now, but because of the location, tremendous amounts of money would be saved. To put it very simply, the flights are a lot shorter. Brazil's proximity to the equator makes it an ideal launch location. My administration is committed to reviving America's proud legacy in space. We're looking very strongly, as you know, and working together with everybody on Space Force. And we are grateful for Brazil's partnership. Mr. President, thank you again for the honor of your visit today. A strong and thriving friendship between the United States and Brazil is essential to a future of security and prosperity for all of our citizens. It's been a wonderful time getting to know you. You're doing a fantastic job. You brought the country together, and I look forward to working with you in a very close relationship for many years to come. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. President, thank you very much.
Excelentíssimo senhor Donald Trump,
Your Excellency,
presidente dos Estados Unidos da América, meus ministros, integrantes de delegações dos estados e do Brasil, senhoras e senhores, profissionais da imprensa,
both from Brazil and from the
senhoras e
US,
senhores,
ladies and gentlemen, media professionals,
muito obrigado,
other guests.
presidente Trump.
Thank
por
you
sua
very
carinhosa
much, President Trump,
hospitalidade.
for your warm
É uma
hospitality.
honra estar em Washington.
It is an honor for us to be in Washington as part of my first bilateral trip ever since I was elected president of Brazil. I would like to use the opportunity, by the way, to invite you to reciprocate this visit, because you will indeed be very welcomed by the Brazilian people at large. We do share a great deal in common.
Grande admirador,
I have always admired the United States of America,
aumentou com a chegada
and this sense of admiration has just increased after you took office at the presidency. This meeting of ours today restores an old tradition of partnership, and at the same time it starts a new chapter of cooperation between Brazil and the United States. Inasmuch as today we have revisited and have again decided to promote matters that were on our order of business for decades. It is time to overcome all the resistance and explore the very vast potential that is there between Brazil and the United States. After all, it is fair to say that today Brazil does have a president who is not anti-American, which is really unprecedented in the past few decades. The reforms we are currently undertaking have changed Brazil into an even more attractive country. We are strongly committed to striking a proper balance in government accounts and also, of course, totally changing the business environment. U.S. support to Brazil's accession to the OECD will be clearly interpreted or construed as a gesture of mutual understanding, which will be very emblematic as part of the closer and closer ties we aspire to. The private sectors of both countries should remain a high-profile player in our relations, and that is why we have decided to restore the CEO forum between Brazil and the U.S. We also intend to attach priority to relaunching an energy forum with an emphasis on oil, gas, and other sources of energy. The Brazilian government, as a sign of goodwill, has granted full visa exemption to U.S. nationals with a view to further encouraging tourism and business travels. On the defense and space cooperation work front, we have signed a technology safeguards agreement, which will in turn enable the Alcântara Satellite Launch Center. Military cooperation has also expanded as we seek out partnerships in the development of defense systems. Science, technology, and innovation activity can certainly be expected to take on an increasing role as part of our bilateral agenda. Hence, our proposal to launch an innovation forum between Brazil and the U.S. Efforts to tackle terrorism and organized crime is a matter of utmost urgency for our two peoples. We have decided to strengthen our bilateral security forum and do more against money laundering and drug trafficking. Re-establishing democracy in Venezuela is also a shared interest between our two administrations. The dictatorial regime in Venezuela today is part of a broader international coalition known as the Sao Paulo Forum, which nearly conquered power throughout Latin America in recent times. However, by democratic means, we were able to rid ourselves from that project in Brazil. In conclusion, may I say that Brazil and the United States stand side by side in their efforts to ensure liberties and respect to traditional family lifestyles, respect to God, our Creator, against the gender ideology or the politically correct attitudes, and against fake news. Drawing inspiration from Ronald Reagan, I wish to bring to Brazil his administration style as summarized in the following citation. People should say what the government can do and not the other way around. The United States changed in 2017 and Brazil has just started to change now. In 2017, we stand together side by side to the ultimate benefit of our two nations. We want to have a great America, yes, and we also want to have a great Brazil. Once again, may I voice my admiration and recognition to President Donald Trump on this beautiful day where we seal a promising alliance between the two most promising and largest democracies in the Western Hemisphere. May God bless Brazil and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
So we'll take a couple of questions. Roberta Rampton, please. Roberta. Reuters. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. On Venezuela, you did the tough sanctions and you sent the aid, but it seems like Maduro is no closer to leaving. And I'm wondering if you're getting worried about losing momentum, and how long are you being told that this is going to take?
I'm not being told any specific time. They've been there a long time between him and his predecessor. At some point, I would imagine things will change, but we really haven't done the really tough sanctions yet. We can do the tough sanctions, and all options are open, so we may be doing that. But we haven't done the toughest of sanctions, as you know. We've done, I would say, right down the middle. But we can go a lot tougher if we need to do that. But it's a very sad thing. We're not looking for anything other than taking care of a lot of people that are starving and dying in the streets. What's happening there is a disgrace. This was one of the wealthiest countries in the world. And all of a sudden it's it's grief-stricken, poverty-stricken, no food, no water, no air conditioning, no anything, no power for a long time last week, no power, and that's going to break down again because it's being held together by threads. So it's very sad, Roberta, very sad to see. Okay.
May I ask President Bolsonaro? President Bolsonaro, are you open to the idea of allowing a U.S. base or U.S. military personnel, a military presence in Brazil to provide support on the border with Venezuela? And is that something that you talked about with President Trump today?
Yeah, we have discussed the possibility of Brazil becoming a great allied extra NATO. Recently, we requested that food was sent through Boa Vista, the capital of Roraima state, through or Friends from America, so that humanitarian aid was provided to Venezuela. At this point in time, this is where we stand. So for as much as it's possible for us to do together to sort out the issue of the Venezuelan dictatorship, Brazil will be more than willing and ready to fulfill this mission and take freedom and democracy to that country, which up until recently was one of the wealthiest countries in South America. But nowadays, people are starving to death. They are suffering violence, lack of medication. It's something terrible that's going on in there. And we need to put an end to this issue, which is pervasive to the whole wide world.
Mr. President, yes.
Boa tarde, presidente. Simone Iglesias, da Bloomberg.
Hello, Simone Iglesias from Bloomberg. I would like to know if the U.S. actually have a military intervention in Venezuela, what's the position of Brazil? Well, there are a few issues that if you speak, they're no longer strategic. Therefore, these reserved issues, which may be discussed if they have not yet, will not become public, evidently. I remember on a debate here in the United States when a candidate asked another candidate what he would do to fight the Islamic State. He said, if I say I will no longer be able to beat it. So it's a matter of strategy. For everything that we discussed here will be honored. But unfortunately, certain pieces of information, if are to come to the table, may not be debated publicly. President Trump, regarding the military intervention, do you think about this possibility of fighting Venezuela to remove Maduro from power?
And all options are open. I think of all possibilities, all options are open. We'll see what happens. And by the way, I see in the audience the son of the president, who has been fantastic. Would you please stand up? The job you've done during a very tough period of time is just fantastic, and I know your father appreciates it, that I can tell you. Okay, thank you very much. Fantastic job. Sagar Enjeti from Daily Caller. Sagar.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
2 questions for you, sir, if I may. The first on the 2020 election. There's a growing number of Democratic candidates who have endorsed the idea of adding seats to the Supreme Court. Is that an idea that you would entertain in the remainder of your term or possible next term, or is that not something that you agree with?
No, I wouldn't entertain that. The only reason is that they're doing that is they want to try and catch up. So if they can't catch up through the ballot box by winning an election, they want to try doing it in a different way. Now, we would have no interest in that whatsoever. It'll never happen. It won't happen, I guarantee you, it won't happen for 6 years.
Another question for you on social media. You tweeted in support of Congressman Nunez's suit against Twitter. There's part of a larger discussion that Senator Josh Hawley's been leading about making social media companies liable for the content that is on their platform, which they're not currently. Is that an idea or a change in law that you would support?
Well, we have to do something. I tell you, I have many millions of followers on Twitter, and it's different than it used to be. Things are happening, names are taken off, people aren't getting through. You've heard the same complaints. And it seems to be if they're conservative, if they're Republicans, if they're in a certain group, there's discrimination and big discrimination. I see it absolutely on Twitter and Facebook, which I have also, and others I see, but I really focus more on the one platform. And I have many different platforms. I guess we have 60 million, almost 60 million on Twitter, and if you add them all up, it's way over 100 million people. And I get to see firsthand what's going on, and it's not good. And we use the word collusion very loosely all the time. And I will tell you, there is collusion with respect to that, because something has to be going on. And when you get the back office statements made by executives of the various companies, and you see the level of, in many cases, hatred they have for a certain group of people that happen to be in power, that happen to have won the election.
Right.
You say that's really unfair. So something's happening with those groups of folks that are running Facebook and Google and Twitter. And I do think we have to get to the bottom of it. It's very fair.
It's become a tool of Satan to bring destruction and to destroy not only individuals but groups. And whenever it comes to being biased, unfair-minded, unfair played, it's awful. Especially whenever you get to looking at our teenagers, our youth, that is so confused and mixed up whenever they get a hold of it. It drives some of them off into a point of suicide.
Elusive, and it's very, very fair to say that we have to do something about it. And if we don't, the incredible thing is that we can win an election, and we have such a stacked deck, and that includes networks. Frankly, and you look at the networks, you look at the news, you look at the newscasts. I call it fake news. I'm very proud to hear the president use the term fake news. But you look at what's happening with the networks, you look at what's happening with different shows, and it's hard to believe we win. But I'll tell you what it really shows. The people are smart. The people get it. They'll go through all of that, whatever it is they're fed, and in the end they pull the right lever. It's a very, very dangerous situation. So I agree. I think something has to be looked at very closely.
Thank you, sir. President Bolsonaro.
It's become extremely complex. And once more, this is the workmanship, the craftsmanship of Satan that's using these devices towards being able to manipulate various parties and various people. And I'm just glad that our president can see that this is a crucial subject that needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed fairly quickly, regardless whether it be Facebook or Twitter or YouTube. The whole demeaning concept of trying to undermine various institutions and various people is unfair play to be on the conservative standpoint of what the president just said.
And another question on the 2020 election. If a number of the Democrats who are running to replace the president have embraced or have considered socialist ideas, you've spoken critically of that in the past. If a socialist or a candidate who embraced socialism were to replace the president, how would it affect your relations with the United States?
Well, it's an internal affair. We will respect whatever the ballots tell us on 2020, but I do believe Donald Trump is going to be reelected fully.
Thank you.
Foi feito comigo no Brasil.
Eu concordo.
Yeah, this was the same what happened to me. I think everyone will repeat their vote here in America. So every day more and more people that are prone to socialism and even communism slowly are going to be opening their minds to the reality. And you can see the border with Venezuela and Brazil was recently closed, not for Brazilians which are pro-socialism to go into Venezuela, but the other way around, so that Venezuelans who support democracy wouldn't go into Brazil. This feeling most certainly is going to be very much seen when 2020 comes.
Mr. President, thank you very much.
Sorry.
Go ahead. You want to go? You
Yeah.
look like a very nice
Yeah.
person. Go ahead. Watch. Here, this will be the killer of all time. Watch.
Thank you, Mr. President. Beatriz Bula from Estadão. The USTR is not supporting the entry of Brazil in the OECD. Is the US government going to formally support Brazil's entry on the OECD, and what have you asked as a trade-off?
We will be supporting. We're going to have a great relationship in so many different ways. That's just something that we're going to be doing in honor of the president and in honor of Brazil. We will be asking for things, but not necessarily having to do with that. I think we're just going to have a very fair relationship. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Presidente Bolsonaro. Presidente Bolsonaro, os Estados Unidos esperam a diminuição da influência da China no Brasil.
Does the United States expect the influence of China into Brazil? Yesterday, Paulo Guedes mentioned that it's going to incentivize relations with China. How does the U.S. see that? And what you said about President Trump, about the Chinese in Brazil? Well, like I said, Brazil's going to keep on making as much business with as many countries as possible. No longer businesses are going to be found into the ideology as it used to be. We are also following this objective for the good of our peoples.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, and thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. China's going very well. Talks with China going very well. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
I'd like to weigh in real quick on what's going on here. I think that this was a good move by our chief and commander due to respecting Brazil as it being one of the strongest leading players in the Italian, in the district of South America towards bringing the alliances together, recognizing one continent pertaining to Alaska, Canada, the United States, Mexico, and South America. I see my buddy's back. Come back to torment. Come back to agitate. Mr. Ridgeway, they quit serving you down there on that mailbox. You're going to have to get your drugs from somewhere else, sir. And if you would, I'd appreciate if you'd quit calling me every 5 minutes towards bringing more agitation and aggravation into my life.
How many times you call us a day?
I don't never call you, Mr. Ridgeway. I don't know who it is that's calling you, but it's not me. You need to contact your server and find out who it really is, because it's not coming from this address. If you call AT&T or Singular or whoever you Verizon, whoever you're with, they'll be able to tell you that it's not Juby Jackson that's calling you. But it's you that keeps contacting me. Why?
Hey, fuck you, unless you've got something you want to give me out here in the middle of this road, then fuck you.
You already had that opportunity, Mr. Ridgeway.
When your cousin was down here?
No, nobody was here. A matter of fact, you had an audience. You had the young girl and the messed up boy right there rooting you on. Go, hit him, hit him, hit him, Donnie, hit him, Donnie. And you never would take a swing. You never would take a swing.
Asshole, anytime you want, asshole.
You never would take a swing.
You can take that camera and stick it up your feet.
Oh, no. No, this is part of my weaponry. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now, you're the one that keeps talking about violence. Now, the question is this. What have I done to you that deems you wanting to take out your anxiety and violence out on me? What have you done? What have I done to you? Even the judge asked you. The judge asked you, Mr. Ridgeway, what has Juby done to you? What's your answer? We're live streaming right now. What's your answer? What's your answer, Mr. Ridgeway? You need an exorcist performed on you. You need to lay down. We need to anoint you with holy oil, and we need to pray them demons out of you, sir. Especially her, the one that's on Xanaxes.
What'd you say?
Especially her, the one that's on Xanaxes. You need prayer. You need prayer.
You know, you're such a filthy person, dude.
I really am.
Yeah. To say that about my grandkids and to say that about my daughter, it doesn't.
What have I said?
You said you should have killed them, is what you said.
No, I did not.
Yes, you did.
No, I did not say that.
They've got it.
No, I did not say that. I was hypothetically speaking, Mr. Ridgeway, and you don't have enough sense to understand that. You're either that unintelligent or that uneducated. You don't understand hypothetics.
You don't even understand how to spell. I got that where you sent that plate to that girl.
I think I'm doing just well. I don't get no complaints from nobody else on my
I
spelling.
think you killed David and you got the money for it, is what I think.
I haven't killed nobody, Mr. Ridgeway. What's more, all these lies. You stick stickers all over your automobile trying to degrade me in front of the community. And now it's all coming back to you, buddy.
No, you're degrading yourself.
No, you're degrading yourself. Go look at your property, Mr. Ridgeway.
You're degrading yourself.
Go look at your property, Mr. Ridgeway.
Property, if you want to compare properties.
Go look at your property, Mr. Ridgeway.
This stuff, Juby. You go.
You're a joke.
You go someplace and.
You're an embarrassment to the community.
I mean, what kind of embarrassment are you?
You're an embarrassment to the community. I'm surprised they haven't.
The churches want you in their churches.
I'm really surprised.
How many places have you went that they say?
I'm really surprised.
Don't come back on my property.
I'm really surprised that they haven't risen a letter towards getting you disbanded from the community or having a privacy fence put around your property. I'm really surprised. And it's coming. It's coming. It's just a matter of time. If somebody has an accident around that corner because they was driving around and they was starstruck, in which that's exactly what you are. You're starstruck. You know that I've already hit the international media, and because of it, you want to be a star. And yeah, you're being a star, all right, but you're being a star in a negative way, in a bad way, and you're too foolish to understand it. You're an embarrassment to the community, Mr. Ridgeway. You're sick. You and your wife both, you need prayer. Do you want to come over here to the cross?
That ain't nothing.
If you want to come to the cross.
You started it out as a church. You started out as a rehab center. Fucking nobody will come to your fucking place because they know how fucking nuts you are.
I am.
Disillusional is a word for you, buddy.
Delusional? Aren't you the one that's promoting violence all the time? Wanting to fight? Wanting to get physical?
Disillusional.
You need prayer, Mr. Ridgeway.
Not from the devil, I don't, Mr. Jackson.
You need prayer, Mr. Ridgeway. You need prayer, Mr. Ridgeway.
You're of the devil, not of God, of the devil.
Well, that's your opinion, and we appreciate your opinion. But you can keep your opinion to yourself. You can keep your opinion to yourself. Keep your opinion to yourself. People need help bad. They drive by here thinking that they're going to be able to get their drugs. Their property over there looks like something that, I don't know what you'd call it. It goes beyond a pitfall. It's an embarrassment to society. Anybody that allows for old cars and trucks and just nothing but a snake pit as far as I'm concerned. I offered him to come to the cross, and we could pray his way through. We could come to the Star of David and pray his way through. Once more, I hate to interrupt this announcement with the President of the United States and the Venezuela president, but I seen him out here sneaking around And he's tried to contact me now today about, I guess, 5, maybe 6 times. What's more, I don't call him. I don't even know his telephone number. Whoever's calling him and they're acting like that they're me needs to stop. But once more, if there's any questions, all he has to do is contact his carrier, whoever his carrier is, and his carrier will tell him who that number belongs to. Because it's not coming from my number. There's no way it's coming from my number because I don't ever contact the guy. He's lying. They're living in some sort of fictitious, deranged world out here, and they're upset because I come back here to try to help them with their drug inducement problems, and they don't like it, and because of it, they're doing everything in the world towards begrudging, lying, bringing up all kinds of false accusations. Oh, if I wasn't having sex with my dog, I was having sex with my brother. Oh, now I ain't having sex with my brother because my brother's dead because I'm the guy that killed him, according to Mr. Ridgeway and Miss Ridgeway. These people are sick. And this is the environment that I've been having to deal with now for 4 years. And we begged Tommy Moore, David and I begged Tommy Moore, please help us. Please help us with this situation out here pertaining to these sick people. And it just went through one ear and out the other to the point that they basically sabotaged us and entrapped us to the point that they got some whore, a deranged drug addict, that knocked his door off 3 or 4 different times. And here they come back.
My cameras catch you on my property, and you won't have no more talking.
Another threat. Another threat. Another threat. They're sick people and they need help. And the church community, you would think Alamo, the church that she goes to, you would think that they would put an end to this. But no, they're entertained by it. They like it. They snigger and giggle every time they see one of my YouTube channels. It tells you the mindset. It speaks volumes of what kind of people actually live around here that would tolerate this of going on now for, I'm going to say 15 years, at least 12. I've only been back for 4. And hell has literally risen up in my life on account of these people. And the rest of the community sit back and snigger and laugh about it like it's some sort of entertainment Hollywood scene. It wouldn't be entertainment and a Hollywood scene if it was happening into their lives. If they had moved back here to their grandfather and their father's property, and they was having to tolerate this type of intolerableness on a day-to-day, everyday level, it wouldn't be so funny to them. Getting back to the president and the president of Brazil, I think it's a very, very smart, intelligent move towards lining up with our alliances in the aspect of knowing that we're all on one continent, which is the majority speaking this side of the equator. And it's just good policy to try to stay friends with your neighbors. Kind of like what they didn't do across the road. They made war with Juby, thinking that Juby was going to tuck tail and run. No, Juby ain't tucking tail. And Mr. Ridgeway knows as well as I do, and everybody else out here, that I gave Mr. Ridgeway the opportunity that he could have swung at me and he could have taken any part of the hide off of my body that he wanted to. But he sat there and looked at me and goes, well, you swing first, Juby. You swing first. This man has steadily provoked my life since I've come back in 2014. And the insanity part about it is he's the guy agitating the fight on. Well, if you want a piece of my rear end so bad, why don't you fly in on top of me? How come there's boundaries pertaining to law issues? There wasn't no boundaries whenever you attacked my brother David and stuck a gun to his head. If anybody has killed anybody pertaining to my brother David, it has been the Ridgeway family and the Sheffield family, and it's been the sorriness of this neighborhood that would not stand up, and it's been the judge of Weakley County and the judicial system in this area. If anybody has killed my brother David, it has been them, along with David's so-called best friend, Mark Thornton, that knew exactly the torment that the whole family was going through down here pertaining to the abusiveness that was coming from our father, and other good, close acquaintances that David, my brother, had pertaining to us having to put up with such of a sickness that my father had in his abusive behavior. And now I've got to come back here and be abused by these people? Or be neglected by law enforcement? Or be neglected once more by the neighborhood towards not sticking up for what's going on down here? It's sickening. I'm ashamed of these people. I'm ashamed of the church people around here because they have not stepped up to the plate towards doing the right thing, not just with Donald Ridgeway and his ugly persona and how that he's acted towards David and I, the whole family, but just look at his property. It speaks volumes of what type of people that they are. And to think that we've come back, or I've come back, to try to help, and instead of me being appreciated, I get this type of gratefulness. These people need prayer. And I'm just not talking about the Ridgeways. I'm not just talking about the Sheffields. I'm just not talking about the Wiccans up the road a quarter of a mile from here. I'm talking about all this community in Northwest Tennessee needs severe prayer because they have sat idly by and they have watched this and been entertained by this. And rather than intervene and rather than try to do something towards stopping and coaching or communicating or counseling with the Ridgeway family and the Sheffield family, they have sat idly by and sat back and sniggered and laughed, similar towards what that they done whenever we was being beat as children, as little bitty children. Why a maniac was running wild in the neighborhood by the name of Grizzly, James Robert Jackson. And none of the men around here was bold enough, strong enough, sensitive enough to realize that there was damage being done because of these type of abusiveness. And today, they're still hiding behind their bank accounts, their big John Deere tractors, their big farms, and their church world. They're still hiding beneath their pride and their stupidity and their very own ignorance. I thank God that Donald Trump has enough insight to know that if you're going to make war, you don't make war with your backyard neighbor or your front yard neighbor. At least he's got enough sense to know that if you're going to stay in good alliances with people, you need to try to stay in good alliances with those who you are connected with, regardless whether they be in your backyard or your front yard. Because whatever you do, you don't want to make war with your neighbor to the extent like these people have made war with us. Once more, I didn't ask for this. Whenever I moved back here in 2014, I didn't ask for a bunch of dogs to come over here and violate my property and vandalize one of my good cookers to the point that we had to issue out warnings coming from law enforcement in this area pertaining to dogs being running loose, big old 40, 50, 60-pound dogs. I didn't ask for this. But because we involved the Weakley County authorities. Oh, it just turned into nothing but a free-for-all. That's the reason why it's always best to act neighborly and to do the right thing. Because once you ever start cheating and lying, it grows and it intensifies. Oh, what a tangled web that the community in this area does weave. When first they look and then they realize they've been deceived. They never should have listened to James Robert Jackson and his ideology that I've got one son on the Bible and another one on the bottle. They never should have bought in to the ideology that James Robert Jackson knew what he was talking about towards saying that his son, Dennis James Juby Jackson, was psychologically, emotionally, chemically imbalanced. Because the very person that was psychologically, emotionally, chemically imbalanced was not his son, but it was the father that was portraying such ideology and such poison out into the neighborhood that basically everybody and their brother wanted to believe. And now the seeds have grown. The seeds of indignation have grown throughout the churches and throughout various lies throughout the people, to the point that, we had created this imaginary monster due to our cowardness and due to the phobia that we had, because we all thought that we was going to instantaneously vanish from the planet whenever God returns, and every molecule in our body was instantaneously going to vaporize and disappear, pertaining to the rapture or the second coming. And because this individual is talking about something different, he must be crazy. He must have a problem. He must be insane. Did they not decipher the same ideology with the Lord Jesus Christ 2,000 years ago, going from the Greek mythology to the judicial Judaism laws, the old Mosaic laws, to now the laws of Christ, the laws of grace? Did they not do the exact same thing to the Lord Jesus Christ, to the point that not only was they trying to drive him off the deep end, in which it's obvious that's what they've done here amongst the whole neighborhood, amongst the judicial, the judicial system in this area pertaining to law enforcement. Did they not try to drive Jesus off the edge like they've obviously done here with me? But did they keep on and on and on to the point that they eventually gathered him up and assassinated one of God's keepers? One of the sacredest people on the planet that has ever lived upon to the planet, which was God's only begotten Son. And they would love to do that. Ridgeway would love to do that. He sits out there and beats his chest like an ape. Like, I'm bad, I'm bad. I want to whip you, Juby. I want to bring hostility and violence into your life. But yet, no, whenever I walk out to the road, why didn't he get aggressive just now? I was on the edge of the road on my side. Why, if he wanted a piece of me that bad, why didn't he fly into me? I'm dealing with nutty people. I'm dealing with sick people. I'm dealing with people that need prayer. They need deliverance. Just like this whole neighborhood needs deliverance. Because anybody that has sat back for 4 years and watched this, as many Facebook, YouTube, as many videos, either on CD or DVD, that I pumped out to all these principalities around here pertaining to city halls and courts and lawyers and courthouses to get absolutely no confirmation other than negative confirmation speaks volumes of the neighborhood. Speaks volumes of the neighborhood. I've got this to say, and then I'm going to let this go. Just as of about 3 days ago, China put out a warning to its people to prepare for something big that's going to happen in regard to storing up water and food for an emergency. There has been some sort of major warning throughout the Hurricane Center of something fixing to hit America within the next 2 weeks. Whenever God spoke to my heart about a week before Christmas in 2018, he said, Dennis, let's give them some more time. We don't want to bring a natural catastrophe into this area pertaining to the New Madrid Fault just yet. Let's give them some more time and see what occurs. Whenever God told me that time frame that he was giving me to give back to the people of not bringing a catastrophe before 2019, he did not give me a specific time date. He didn't tell me if it was going to be a week, a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year. He just said, tell them that I have agreed with more time. This TikTok bomb that we're sitting on here in America is going to be unlike anything that America has ever experienced. And I hope to God that this isn't what it takes to awaken not just this community, but the American people pertaining to all this. But I do know this, that between God and the messenger of God, which that's what I count myself as, a messenger of God, I believe that we have given society more than enough time to do a 180-degree turn, a 360-degree turn, especially since I have brought forth the evidence, the ongoing evidence of where this originated, of this world conspiracy, all the way down in Jackson, Tennessee, pertaining to the United Pentecostal people there at the Lighthouse Pentecostal Church in Jackson, Tennessee. Since I have brought you all this information in black and white, undeniable towards what occurred, and these people are still sitting back, acting lame. They're still not willing to intervene in any of this, though they have known the truth all along. You talk about a group of people that's asking for the wrath of God to fall upon them. It's this group. Just like during the 1800s, whenever there was the night riders that was taking vengeance upon to not only the guilty, but upon to the innocent and using it as a game. That's one of the reasons why God allowed for the intolerablenesses to fall upon to this area pertaining to the great earthquake that created Reelfoot Lake. God will not put up with, he will not continue to wink over man's ignorance forever. And I'm just afraid that this doomsday clock that we keep looking at, it's one thing to look at man's doomsday clock that they've created, which I guess we're at 2 minutes till the 12 o'clock hour. But to look at this doomsday clock that God has put in place for man, and for man to continue to sit back and not do the right thing, regardless whether it be the people in the Lighthouse Pentecostal Church in Jackson, Tennessee, the United Pentecostal people, or it be the judicial system here in Weakley County or in Obion County, or the various neighbors that want to promote themselves as being godly and Christians, for them to sit back and allow for this to continue to advance and continue to evolve and more evidence of the truth continue to keep coming out pertaining to what the Neal family done over in Kenton, Tennessee, all the way up to the mayor, Damian Cross, of how that he basically institutionalized a platform of deception towards branding the individual that's talking to you right now, towards assassination, character assassination. For these people to sit idly by and to let this continue to evolve and escalate and fester and fester and fester, whenever the wrath of God does befall upon your lives, regardless whether it happens on a independent one-on-one level or it happens on a massive level, the only thing that I can say is just like Paul Harvey said, you basically had it coming. You have brought this up onto your own heads because you did not do the proper right thing. And if I got to tell you what that proper right thing is, obviously I'm dealing with a group of people that is either lost their minds, that are insane, or a group of people that is nothing more than a bunch of infidels similar to the Ridgeway family, that maybe you have went beyond any help, and the only help will be for what bestows upon to your life pertaining to the wrath of God. It's pretty bad whenever I cannot sit in my own domain, my own secluded little area, and do a live stream pertaining to the President of the United States, and I get disrupted in the way that I have. And like I said, I wouldn't have went out there today after me seeing the red Suburban if I hadn't already been contacted by Donald Ridgeway at least 3 times whenever I was up at Mr. Rollins' house a while ago, and Mr. Rollins actually put in a few good selected words towards Mr. Ridgeway. But then since then, he's tried to contact me 3 or 4 other times on his phone. On his phone, he's a persistent liar. He don't know what the truth is, or he claims that he don't know what the truth is. I really think he does know. He knows what he's doing. He thinks that he's crafty. He thinks that he's one of these smart crooks that worked up there in Chicago, in the streets of Chicago for about 30 years, ripping off his customer base pertaining to air conditioning and heating and cooling. He thinks that he's beyond any type of retribution. How many other people out there are like them? How many other people out there that get a hold of this YouTube channel of mine, that hear this? How many people do you know that similar to this family? That's just sick. They're twisted. If there's ever been a time that we needed to stick together and pray for unity, pray for a revival, pray for God to awaken this nation, the time is now. The time is now.
Reconciled. The world has already been reconciled to God. And I had to tell the class Monday night, it was a week ago, and all the way home there was a verse that was plaguing me. Now, since I've sidetracked or chased rabbits, as I told the class last night, I like to do that. Come back with me to Hebrews, because I can't bring up the subject and then let you dangle on it. Hebrews chapter 2. When I got home that Monday night, that verse had been plaguing me, and I had to quick go find it. I couldn't put my finger on it. But here it is. And this is what we have to understand, that the work of the cross was enough for every human being from Adam to the end of time. Every sin has been already paid for. And that's why the only thing God now asks is, believe it. Believe it. See? All right, Hebrews chapter 2, verse 9. But we see Jesus, who was made a little lower than the angels for the suffering of death, crowned with glory and honor, that he, by the grace of God, should taste what? Death. For how many? For every man. Now let me tell you.
For all. For all.
Awful. It's not the heat of the flames. It's not the appetites unsatisfied. It's going to be an eternity of regret. I didn't have to be here. This was all paid for, and I rejected it. And now listen, there's nothing worse than regret. I've made a couple bad business deals down through the years, and I know what regret can be over something so mundane, and I'm sure everyone has. But listen, to spend an eternity in torment and then regretting constantly, there was no need for me to be here. It was all paid for, and I walked it underfoot. See, this is what the world is doing today. They are walking underfoot. I gave a good little illustration last night, and I haven't got time on this program, but it made the point. What it is to reject a pardon.
And that's exactly what Mr. Ridgeway is doing. He is rejecting towards getting his life right with the Heavenly Father. And he can say whatever he wants to say about Juby being of the devil. That's fine. All right? If you don't want to seek help from me, seek help from somebody else that you got confidence in. But the main thing is to seek help. If you don't feel obliged, if you don't feel comfortable, if you don't feel led, if you don't feel directed by seeking help through advice coming from the Windmill Ministries missions, then seek help somewhere else. But he's not even doing that now, is he? All he wants to do is bring up false, fake accusations about me killing my brother, even though I was talking to my niece on the telephone, even though my brother David had contacted the Grief family over in Trimble, Arnold Grief, that night, and explained to Mr. Grief that he felt bad, but rather than go to the emergency room like the people that he was working for there in Trenton, Tennessee, advised him to do, he decided that he was going to take a cat nap in the park. After taking the cat nap, an hour and a half sleep, he wakes back up. He contacts once more Arnold Grief, and he talks to his wife, Rebecca, and he tells Rebecca, I feel better now. I think I'm going to try to mosey on back home. He never contacted me that evening. He drove right by the house, and he parked his vehicle in a place that he normally don't never park his vehicle, and walked into the side entrance of his trailer and never walked back out. He died in his sleep. He had a massive heart attack or a stroke, or his heart quit beating, or something occurred that night, to the point that by morning's break, my brother David was dead. Now let me ask my viewers a question. I was so heart-stricken by my brother's death that none of these idiots or morons come by and voiced any of their opinions about their sympathies towards my brother's death. A matter of fact, they agitated even more and kept agitating Mr. Ridgeway towards driving by here and started immediately making false accusations. You killed your brother. You killed your brother. Even though it was somebody in this neighborhood, I don't have to mention names, towards somebody throwing a piece of raw meat that was poisoned to my brother's dog that died within about 3 months before my brother did. I have never had to put up with so much insensitive, evil, humiliating factors that what I have been having to deal with for the past 4 years. And to think that the judicial system in Weakley County pertaining to Mr. Pence or Mr. Moore, Tommy Moore, the judges in this county has sat idly by and allowed for this to fester and for this to fester and for this to fester. The last time that I stood in front of Tommy Moore, his words was, well, ain't nothing I can do. I'm just going to have to wait until there's some blood on the floor. There's got to be blood on the floor before I can do anything. But yet, no, I make 2 telephone calls to the people up in the land between the lakes, and it cost me 9.5 months pertaining to telephone stalking. And this man is doing this intentionally, coming out here, and been getting drugs out of his mailbox, and done everything in the world towards running me off. You see, it's not just that Donald Ridgeway wants me away. It's the majority of the people in this county wants me away. And because of it, they have allowed for him to do this. Mr. Ridgeway has become their trigger man. Though he may not be doing nothing physically yet, as far as drawing a gun and putting it to my head like he done my brother. This psychological warfare that has been going on since I've come back here, they have set back and allowed, which once more fits under the category of dereliction of duty coming from the judicial law enforcement agencies in this area. I hope that everyone has been entertained by all this. I hope that they have got their jollies off, and I hope that they have sniggered and laughed, and they have really been entertained by all this, because this has nothing to do with Hollywood. This has nothing to do with scripts that you read. This is reality that I and my brother have been having to deal with since I come back here in 2014, now for 4 years. May God have mercy on the people in the surrounding areas that has not only been aware of the problems in the Jackson family that was manifested in the late 60s, throughout the 70s and the 80s, pertaining to James Robert Jackson, that was not willing to do anything about it. But may God have mercy of those who have known about these occurrences for the past 4 years and have sat idly by and sniggered and laughed in a very insensitive, immoral, pathetic way. May God have mercy on your souls.